Okay, so everybody see the blue bar? Everybody looking up at the blue bar? There we go. All right. So no, actually, I'll bring it down a little bit. All right, so that was an excellent presentation. A few things, though, to consider regarding free will, kind of going for the underdog. The normal academic view is to support the notion that there is not free will. And, of course, here we are in Holland. This is Dutch country, right? So on the Reformed view, too, that there is not free will. So on the Reformed view, it's that we have freedom, but freedom is construed in the sense of not being coerced. So I am free right now to have chosen to speak on this topic of free will, or the option was instead to have a group presenter go first, but instead I chose to go ahead and talk. And I was free to do that in the sense that nobody was holding a gun to my head saying, right now, you talk about free will, to give a follow-up to that presentation on free will. So because I wasn't coerced, in that sense, I'm free. Now, one might think that's just playing with the definition of freedom and using the word freedom in a rather tortured sense. I am free in the sense that I was not coerced, right? Does that make sense? But I'm not free in the sense that it's possible that I be doing any degree I wasn't coerced. But I'm not free in the sense that it's possible that I not do what it is that now I'm doing, because everything's determined. So we just heard that presenter giving a non-theological argument. That would be a theological argument regarding God's predestination, right? Whereas the counter on that from Arminianism would be that God knows the future, that the future is set, but that it's not that God said it that way, it's that God foresaw it, right? That's more Catholic and Wesleyan view would be that, right? But then, strictly philosophically, we just watched that great 6-minute video by Sam Harris. And he says that we do not pick, that we just witness our decisions. So he asked you to pick a city to think about right now. And then affect your actions. In this case, you're thinking about that city. You're a witness. You are not directly involved. Now, one question I'd have is, do you have the choice to be a witness or not? And his answer would be no, right? I mean, one might think, well, now, don't I have the choice either to, well, somebody just got up and went to the restroom, right? Now, it could be they could have waited. They didn't have to, but they did. So couldn't you do that during Sam Harris's talk and just decide, no, I'm not going to listen to this? Or could you have decided, I am going to get out my cell phone and check out the NBA score, right? Or any number of things. Or I'm just going to daydream. Well, anyway, the view that there's not freedom says, no, you weren't free to do any of that thing. Whatever it is that you did, it's not possible that you not have done it. So he also says that we're limited by options. So in his example of asking you to think about a city, you did not think about a city that you were unaware of, right? Well, that is not saying every action is completely free. That would be crazy, right? Because no, I can't fly. I'm not free to fly, unaided, right? So nobody thinks that, but we all have this inner tendency, which maybe is just a tendency and it's one we need to get over, of feeling as if we're free, of feeling as if I could either listen to this now or check my cell phone or get up and walk to the restroom. I'm free to do any of those things, right? So maybe that freedom is an illusion because your thinking it comes from where you don't know where. And it's that thinking then that's determining your decision making, which you're then going to act on. So let's say you're thinking this way right now. Well, I can listen because it's kind of interesting, but some of you are going to decide, but I might have an important email coming in that I do need to respond to. So I'm going to do that instead. Okay, well, if that thought has more of a sense of urgency for you, such that that thought, when you didn't know where it came from, it just popped in your head and you simply passively observed it popping in your head, and it has the sense of urgency with it such that you act on that, how is it not then that the thought determined your action? Does that make sense? Or you got up to go to the restroom because you really needed a piss, right? Okay, well then that would be like a biological urgency, where I really have the strong aversion to wetting my pants in public, and I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that doesn't happen. So you didn't bring about the working in your bowels at that time with that sense of urgency. It just happened to you, and you're conscious of it, you are witnessing it, but your witnessing is passivity, witnessing that you need to go to the bathroom. And even your desire, your strong aversion of wetting yourself in public isn't something that you inculcated in yourself. You were conditioned that way from a very, very early age, right? Susie, Johnny, how many times do I have to tell you? If you need to go, tell mommy or tell daddy, and we'll take you to the bathroom. Don't do this. I mean, from what, 2 or 3 years of age, right? So you didn't have anything to do with that either. That was planted in you. So when you get up, instead of listening to me, you get up to go to the bathroom, you can see how, in a real sense, it's like that's not free, right? So, and also, so often, we don't know why it is that we pick what we pick. So I want you to just ask, I want to ask you right now, I'm going to quit talking for 5 seconds, and I want you to be an observer of your mind. Ready, go. Okay, now I want you to mentally tell yourself what it was that you thought. All right, now there's 2 possibilities. Number 1, there is some external stimuli which caused you to think that thought that you just had. So in my case, I was thinking about my motorcycle ride home at this one part on Chicago Drive where one time I went by there at that spot and I ran out of gas. The next time I went by there and my engine started sputtering. So I'm thinking about my ride home tonight and what's going to happen there at that spot. All right. So why did I think that? Well, I realized that I'm going to ride home. Little incidents, I guess you can't really call it that, but they're at that spot. Okay, so was I choosing to think that? Well, I gave myself 5 seconds and told myself, just observe whatever it is that I thought. Why is it that I thought that? I mean, I could have thought of anything else. I could have thought of some grading that I've got this grade. I wrote down right on my hand. A student in chapters 4 and 5, I need to remember to change that grade. I mean, I want to take care of that like before I leave here. That's something I got to make sure I get done, right? Or the laptop that was borrowed, I need to make sure I give it back to the secretary. I mean, those are things I got to do, right? So why didn't I think those things? I could have thought those things, but I thought about the motorcycle. Okay, see, I don't even know why I thought that. I gave myself a little time to think, and then I told you what I thought, and now I'm telling you of other things that I could have thought, which are like maybe more important to take care of, things I could actually do something about. I can't even explain to you why I thought what I thought. Okay, now you're going to make fun of me and laugh at me. Fine, go ahead. Get it out of your system, okay? Oh, yeah, but now I'm going to ask you, right? What did you think? Why did you think what you thought? And it could well be this. It wasn't even, at least I gave like some quasi-explanations of why I thought what I thought, or possible thoughts I could have had, but didn't. But if I did, what could have motivated them? Okay? But it could well be, too, you just had a thought, like for no reason. Not, okay, I'm a little concerned for the safety issue. Not, these are a couple things that I need to make sure I get done. I just had a thought. And I have no idea why. And it makes no sense. You're looking at me like I'm crazy? I'm telling you I'm crazy, okay? I don't know why. I just thought of a really big, all yellow bird with a long plume going out the back of its head. You know, I used to watch the movie Beretta. Maybe that had some impact. I don't know why I thought it. Okay? What, I'm crazy? Yes, you already knew that. Okay, but other than that, is this a reason to think I'm crazy? No! I bet some of you had thoughts when I told you to have a thought. And it's not about something you need to look after or get done. You just had the stupid thought. Where did that thought come from? Do you know? No, you don't. But you had it. So how is it not the case then that we are simply observing the actions of our mind passively being led? Having been conditioned by your peers, right, to think the way that you do. Okay, so that's to give an explanation of why you have the thought that you do. I have these friends, this is how we think, this is the stuff we do. And so that's in my head, and so that's why I'm aware of myself having these thoughts, and then thoughts lead to actions. So that explains why I do what I do. Because of the people that I hang out with and the way that they think, right? I mean, how many of you see yourself in different ways based on who you're hanging around? How many of you realize that if you hang around this certain crowd, you're probably going to be thinking along certain lines, and that's probably going to lead to action. Maybe it's positive, maybe it's negative, right? So who can deny that we are influenced by our culture? By our peers, leading us to watch what we do, to read what we do, to have conversations that we do, molding our thinking and thus molding our actions. Who can deny that? Okay, back it up a little though. Could you have chosen whether you're going to go with Group A or Group B? Because you know you got the circle of friends of Group A, and you know practically every time by the end of the night everybody's stone drunk, right? And you're thinking, you know, being out in public, stone drunk, that could really lead to some bad ramifications, right? Because then I could get drunk and disorderly and disturb the peace. And then I could get arrested. And then I could go to jail. Or worse yet, your judgment goes when you're drunk. So maybe then I will, like JRCC just handed out those 3 links that I said, I hope you watch those, right? Everybody get that? Bottom of announcements, right? That email about sexual harassment and violation. Everybody saw that, didn't they? So, you know, you might think to yourself, do I want to be blitzed out of my mind around people, many of whom are strangers, knowing that, yes, there are sexual predators around. And so maybe I'm going to choose either A, I'm not going with that group, or B, if I go with that group, I'm not going to get blitzed out of my mind. One of the first things that go when you get drunk, even before you're drunk, is your judgment. So you might think, I'm not going to drive drunk because I know that, well, I know of one guy who did that, and he was a great guy. A little too much to drink, ran over somebody, they're dead. Went to prison for a number of years. Now he's out, got his life together, got married, has kids, has a good life. But wow, that's 10 years he could have done without. So what likely happens? If you drink too much, your judgment goes, which means you could think that you haven't drank too much. So you get in your car and you drive, and then maybe you kill somebody. Or you get pulled over and you're over the limit, and there goes your insurance rate, at the very least, right? So do you have this freedom then to decide, I'm going to go with Group B instead of Group A? Because Group B, we end up going to a coffee shop and talking and reading And yeah, it's a little boring sometimes, but group A, we end up getting drunk, and then maybe I do things sexually that I really regret, or that I drive when I shouldn't. And so I'm going with group B, not group A. Well, now wait a minute. Didn't we just give reasons for why it is that you made the choice that you did? I have priority, which says, prioritize not doing things sexually that I know I shouldn't, and not having my judgment go so that I drive when I know I shouldn't, not being with a group that likely I'm going to get pretty drunk and then maybe get arrested for disturbing the peace, maybe lose some control, punch somebody in the face and go to jail, whatever, right? So, okay then, you just gave reasons for why it is you're not going with that group. So how is it then that those reasons didn't determine you're not going with that group, but instead going to the coffee shop to read with other friends? See, anytime you give reasons for your action, is it the case then that you are giving causes for that action? And if the reasons are causes, they are causally efficacious. The reasons made you do the way that you did. But those reasons themselves, maybe they came from the way you were raised, from your culture, from out of the blue, who knows where. But the point is, did you generate those reasons out of freedom? Your answer is probably no. So far we've looked very much on the side of why it makes sense to talk of our not being free, right? Now on the other side, as the group was doing a good job pointing out, there's the other side too, to weigh. Or maybe just because it's interesting and you can't help but wonder. But practically speaking, is it going to make a difference in how you live your life? What if we decide that everything is causally determined? Will that mean then that you won't make the decision that otherwise you would have made? Are you then going to say, okay, everything is causally determined, so I don't actually have freedom. So, heck, I'm just going to get up and walk out and get drunk, and what does it matter? Anything I do is determined anyway. I don't really have any freedom. I'm just observing the thoughts which are motivating my actions. I have no freedom. So, screw it. Is that what you're going to do? No, you're probably going to think, well, wait a minute, I need to get this class because that's part of getting this degree, because that's part of, becoming a better citizen and a more rounded person intellectually and all these other things that I value. And no, I'm not. I do value, so my believing that I'm not free is not going to affect what it is that I do. It's just going to affect my understanding of the nature of what's going on. Am I a passive observer who's not free actually to make any choices? Or am I free to make choices? Well, my point is, either way you look at it, perhaps it's not going to affect what you do. Well, pragmatism then would say, so it's useless. Forget about this developing your mind through arguing and expanding your horizons and becoming a more rounded person and just studying this thing about freedom versus determinism for the intrinsic intellectual curiosity that you have. Forget all those reasons. Who cares? Doesn't make a difference. I mean, what if you said that you are free and not everything is determined? Well, what's the point going to be there? Is that going to matter any? So you think, okay, I'm genuinely free. Heck, what? So I'm just going to jump out the window then because I'm free. No, you're not going to decide that because you don't want to get hurt. And so there's going to be a motivating reason for you not doing something dumb. So whether you believe in freedom or you believe in determinism, it seems to make sense that it doesn't really affect how you're going to live. Or does it? Well, you could argue this way. I have this very strong sense that I could go on talking about this or that we could just go to the next group. What am I going to do? I think I'm just going to go on talking. I had this real strong sense that I could have gone the other way, right? So who can deny at least that they have the sense that they are free? That it is possible that you not do some of the things that you do. I say some of the things. Obviously, there are some things which you're not free not to do. We're not interested in those cases. We're interested in, are there any cases in which it's possible that I not do what I do? That's what's the interesting thing to argue about, right? So it seems that I have this freedom. And the speculation that we've just done about why perhaps it is that although it seems that I have that freedom, perhaps actually I don't. Well, I'm interested in that. But maybe you think you got to do better. Because before I'm going to basically deny like the nose on my face, I'm not going to just fall for an argument that seems to have some weight. It better be damn good. And I also, though, have some reasons for thinking perhaps it's not the way to go, because what would be the case if one isn't responsible for one's actions? So again, we're not talking about the cases where somebody was done what they did, or could have done what they did not do, and thus are morally culpable. Are there such cases? That's what's interesting. Well, let's do an argument reductio ad absurdum and ask if it's the case that there's not such an incident. What does that mean? Well, typically we look at the sort of cases like we did, the group did about the two boys who kidnapped and murdered a 14-year-old, and then appealed to their having read Nietzsche, to their being raised in dysfunctional homes, right? And so they should only have life in prison, not the death penalty, right? Because heck, for all of us, we couldn't do anything but what we did, because everything is determined. There is no freedom. Okay, now if that's the case, then why not rather rule this way? Boys, you murdered a 14-year-old. You couldn't help it. None of us can help anything that we do, so you're free. Why life in prison? Not to the point of killing them, but life in prison. Wow, that's severe. I mean, you're going to do that for somebody who couldn't not do what they did? I mean, you're going to do that for me? If I jump in the air and then I fall back down to the ground, would anybody ever think of charging me with anything for coming back to the ground and saying, why did you come back to the ground? Well, that's an insane question. I mean, it's gravity. If I jump, I'm going to come back down. Unless somebody catches me or something. I mean, that's insane. Of course, I can't do anything but come back down. Okay, well, if that's the case then for everything, because there is no freedom, then those boys couldn't possibly not have murdered the 14-year-old. There's no way they not have done that. Well, if that's the case, why in the world is it you're giving them life in prison? Or what if it were this way? The judge decides, you know what I'm going to do? I've got some secret guards, and as soon as court is over here, and I can get away with it, I, as a judge, am deciding right now what's going to happen is my secret guard is going to grab you, both you boys, and they're going to put you over hot coals, and they're going to fry you to death as slowly and painfully as we possibly can. Is that just? Is that a just verdict? I don't suppose you think so. But if the argument of not having freedom works for the two boys, it works just as well for the judge. So America had a judge like that, Judge Roy Bean. You break the law in his county, chances are real good you'll be hanging from a tree by nightfall. Well, that's fine. How could he not? He couldn't. I mean, everything's determined. Nobody has freedom not to do whatever. Judge him either. Okay, now you're going to put that in the case of Weinstein, right? In Hollywood. Sexually assaulted, allegedly including many rapings, hundreds of women over decades. By the way, Hollywood is loaded with pedophiles. Lots of examples of it. Going right back to Charlie Chaplin and Walt Disney. That's fine. Right? I mean, come on now. Didn't Weinstein have strong urges? None of us are free not to do whatever it is that we do. So that's fine, right? Oh, shoot. This argument, reductio ad absurdum, seems to landing in our holding nobody accountable for anything, including a grossly unjust judge, including a rapist, including anything. So before I'm going to buy, I'm thinking I might pick it up, but I might not. And I don't actually know what I'm going to do right now, but now I've determined the intent. But no, I'm changing it. I intended to pick it up, but no, I'm not going to. No, I am. I did. Boy, I thought I was really, really free there. Maybe I wasn't, but I have such a strong sense that I was, that before I'm going to deny that that's true, I'm going to need a very airtight argument. Being careful not to fall into some kind of sophistry. Number two, before I'm going to say that nobody can be responsible for anything, which turns justice completely on its head, giving a complete pass to any action whatsoever, again, gosh, maybe that's actually the way it is, but boy, I better have one stinking good argument before I'm going to swallow that one, right? So this sort of touches on a little bit of what we talked about last week, that philosophy, even education, it can be like what Bertrand Russell says it is. Something that because you think hard and look at lots of different options, you're far less likely to just fall into whatever sort of groupthink that's around you. Because you've opened your mind, you've learned how to think critically, you've looked at many options carefully. So that a key benefit of doing philosophy is freedom. Freedom to think for yourself, not just to be programmed by your stinking television, music, culture, Hollywood, but to actually get to a point where you're not just thinking the thoughts fed to you like some zombie, but that you're actually thinking for yourself. So there's the power of it. The danger of it can be you end up losing the forest for the trees. You can think so deeply, get so lost in so many arguments that you don't know where the North Star is anymore. To where you almost wonder if the people who don't study philosophy actually seem to have a lot more common sense, whereas if you do anything too much. Drinking water is good. Drinking too much water can kill you, right? So in philosophizing, just like in anything, there needs to be moderation. Enough for the benefit, for the good, for the wisdom, but knowing when too much is getting to be too much. All right, so much for that lecturette.